Please hit like, share, and subscribe. Now enjoy the Practical Guitarist podcast.
Good evening.
Good evening, David.
How's it going? We've been talking for the last 20 minutes. We do these lives, there's a 20-minute go time before this all happens. So we could fake that Jim and I just started talking, but that really didn't just happen.
Every time we shoot an episode, we've been talking for a while.
Usually, yeah. So tonight,
even if it's not.
I mean, so this weekend is right. It's the big deal. The title of our episode tonight, Jim, is "We Didn't Go to Namm." Okay. So and it's supposed to be read just like that. Right. If you're finding the podcast for the first time, please like, subscribe, do all that stuff. You can find us. We have a Facebook group that's well managed. There's a lot of people in there, and then you can also you can find our Discord, and it'll be in the show notes below after the show. So, anyway, general news. Do you got anything new? Did you buy anything new? I do have something new we can talk about for just a second, because I don't want to spend too much time on it. So I'm going to share something old. It's going to be like a wedding, old and then new. This is a DiMarzio cable. Okay. Oh, nice. Look at how worn out this cable is. I'm sure you can start to see the fuzz and stuff come off it. I have had this cable for probably 17 years. I'd say about 17 years. Okay. Now, I've been looking for replacement for this guy. This cable is my recording cable. I have, for some reason, just gotten to the point where I prefer the sound of this when I'm recording. I know it sounds absolutely insane. I've used Planet Wave stuff as well, and the D'Addario American Stage. They're fine, but for whatever reason, I end up grabbing this guy a lot, and it's something about the sound, but also just the fact that I've recorded it with it for years. What I like about it is it's got that fuzzy jacket on it, right? It's not this is not the regular vintage jacket. This is it's like a lower quality version of it almost. It's very, like I said, for lack of a better word, it's fuzzy.
Yeah, I have a few of those.
Okay. So they still make those. They're hard to find in stores, but you can order them. And I actually thought about ordering a couple, but I bought a Boss cable, and
I have a exact cable.
Because they're all the same, right? This is a 10-foot straight. But I actually really like this. And it's not as stiff as the DiMarzio, but it's sonically basically the same. I mean, it's a good cable. Good cables are basically sonically identical in most factors. So we'll see how it holds up, but I'm going to give a little bit of an endorsement to Boss for their cables. They actually did a really good job designing those, and I'm kind of a heathen, and I didn't even look at them when they came out because I was just like, I don't want to buy more cables right now. I was buying the American Stage stuff from D'Addario at the time, and I'd still plan on using those on stage. Rubber jacket for stage because they don't show dirt as bad. And then I'll keep those for the house, and I can use those for when I'm doing the live stream and stuff because they're shorter. I buy 10 foots, Yeah,
the other nice thing about the rubber jacket ones, which I have blue ones and I have yellow ones, so I know which ones are going into my effects loop. Mm-hmm. Those cables wipe right down, so it doesn't matter what you get on them. You just take them.
Yeah, I mean, for the most part, they wipe right down. I've had situations where you get them in motor oil or something because of where you're playing, and it's forget it. At that point, throw the cable away or deal with the dirty cable for the rest of the cable's life.
It's pretty gross.
Yeah, let me see if I can finagle my mic stand here for a second because I've got a cable like bumping my knee, and it's gonna cause noise every time I touch it.
Yeah.
It's the best I can do. It's gonna be noisy,
mine
folks.
Is running up the thing.
Yeah, go ahead.
Is that
yeah, I'm done.
new?
I got nothing else.
Oh, all right. Are we ready? Oh, we're at general news. So let's talk about the elephant in the room. First of all, Gibson. Everybody's already watched the thing. They won against Dean. It wasn't a big lot. It wasn't a big pile of money, but it is $4,000 per counterfeit per. What do you call it? So we're not sure. What wasn't told is that's probably not per guitar sold. I'm sure of that.
No, it was $4,000. It was $4,000 per model, and there was only 2 models they won on, I think. So it was like a total of $8,000.
Yeah, I thought they won on more than that, but and there is a question of okay, and that's state dependent. Who's going to pay the court costs, and that'll be obviously, but Gibson's going to have lawyers on retainer. They have a legal team. There's no cost really that's going to be able to be passed on to Dean for that. Not in a large sense, and of course, and that's if that was awarded to them. Mm-hmm. I think it's more about okay, Dean can't sell those guitars anymore, or is Dean going to have to pay a subscription similar to what other companies have done for them?
They're going to have a licensing fee, but even then, I've seen it already said from other manufacturers is like, if that's all we have to pay, who gives a shit?
Right.
I mean,
that's exactly right.
So the licensing fee has to be reasonable enough that people will pay it, because otherwise they're just going to say screw you. And
a lot of people have said, "Oh, is Fender going to do this next?" Well, no, because Fender tried this already, and they boo-booed. There was something about the transfer from Fender to CBS or CBS to the next one. I can't remember which one.
I haven't heard that story.
Somebody forgot. Yeah, I'm the facts are fuzzy. So, folks, I've got the gist of the thing. When the body shapes changed hands, the copyrights didn't get filed by the company that was in ownership or something like that, and so they wound up losing that copyright.
The fact that they never defended it to begin with, because they did defend it against the Japanese, and they won, and so did Gibson, because they were both suing at the same time, places like Togai
back in the 70s or 80s. Yeah,
but that was international lawsuits and all different sorts of different things.
And laws are different when applied differently, and believe me, I've got a friend who's an international lawyer, and he starts talking about all that stuff, and I zone out. So anyway, there's that. But if you go to Gibson's site right now, Gibson has had a price hike again.
Yep, I can pull it up actually.
From $100 more, the base models of the Les Pauls went up another $100. To $27.99, I think, and
so the base model, $27.99 for Les Paul standard 50s,
and the custom, which I don't have hanging behind me because it's in the case, but it'll go back up this weekend. But the custom, what's funny is the black custom stayed the same. It's, the last price hike brought it to $49.99, and it's still there. But the Alpine white version went up again from $54.99 to $57.99. So now you'll pay an $800 premium for Alpine white. Which means
so is yours technically a 57 custom reissue? Is that technically what it is?
No, it's a Les Paul custom with ebony fingerboard Alpine white.
So do they list that? It's not listed in the custom stuff. Is it listed in?
Yeah, it's listed in custom.
Oh, I don't see it. I'm literally looking at it right now.
Yeah, it's listed in, if you go to the Les Paul collection, you got under custom shop. You have to go to custom shop. And then scroll down, and you'll see it black. It right underneath the 1957 Les Paul reissue is the Les Paul custom with ebony fingerboard gloss.
Oh, I don't see it.
This is finished 2 options.
Not showing. Oh, now I see it.
And,
Okay. Yeah,
yeah.
6,200. Right. Okay. Yeah.
And so if you click that, so it's pretty expensive. I paid $42.99 for mine, so I feel good. Um,
Yeah, because they hiked the price last year, I think.
right, yeah,
And
right
so,
after I bought it.
it's funny.
So mine,
It said, oh, this is a 68 reissue.
yeah, you want the one that just says Les Paul custom with.
No, I thought I clicked on that one, but I guess I didn't.
Here, I'll send
No,
you a
no,
link.
no. So that's $5,000 even.
Yeah,
Okay.
the black one's $5,000 even, but if you click the
And the
white,
white
if
is
you click that,
58. Yeah, because white is a
yeah,
harder finish to
yeah,
do, but also
yeah,
there's a premium there for sure.
and it's out of stock.
Of course.
Um, yeah, and you won't get your hands on one. Not for a while. They don't like to have to make the white ones because of the process. But anyway, so yeah, there's a price hike there. They're not the only ones that have done a price hike, but certainly. And what's funny is the slashes I think stayed the same, except for the newer colors because they're coming out with newer colors, so they're gonna go.
I still think
With
it's
the,
funny that you pay $4,000, $5,000 in this case, and you get a 490R and a 498T.
I know, I know.
It's
You
like,
get a 490R and a 498T, the two of the most generic and have been around a
couldn't you
long
have just put a
time.
burst bucker or something in there? Like, what the hell?
Almost everybody I know that uses a custom um, does change of the pickups, and I'm probably going to be one of those people. I'll probably take the originals out, put them in a bag, and then
So let's talk about for a minute uh
what
the price hike.
which makes it. Yep.
So everything is basically going up $200 to some of the things are going up $100. Most everything is going up 200. Some of them are
Two
going
to 300
300, and some are even going up
and
more than
more.
that.
Yep.
And of course it's Gibson, looking at their price and what they're selling things for and the volume that they've sold and saying this should be more expensive and all that. I think people have a tendency to look at this and go, this is because of inflation and they're just ratcheting up the prices. But realistically, they're shipping more and it's costing them more money. And I mean, I don't see this as an out of the ordinary sort of price situation. If anything, I think this is sort of in line with the market. They got away with the $200 average price increase, whereas PRS, I think, just went up $300 across the board, except for the SE line. I think the SE line went up less than that. But I was looking the other day, somebody had mentioned it, and of course, wasn't an obvious price hike because they're already $4,000 to begin with. But when you're looking at a custom 24, I believe is now $4,200 or $4,300.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's pretty steep, guys. So, all right. I think we covered that. I mean, so the other thing is that the Gibson lawsuit thing, we don't know what's going to happen. No one does. And it may turn out that this just blows over and no one cares. And I would think that's very likely. But we'll have to wait and see, right?
Yeah.
So,
I mean, it's just like anything else.
So we're gonna move on to the next topic.
Well, let me just
if you got more,
bring up one more thing. So Fender brought out because
okay.
they brought out a whole line of pedals. I don't know. I mean, I don't know what your take on it is.
You talking about Hammer Tone?
Yeah, the Hammer.
Yeah, I mean that's been out for about a month now. Or announced about a month ago anyway. My take is, and I haven't played them yet, so this is my hot take. This is Fender's Chinese line. This is the Squire Pedals, and basically they probably just went and got basically a company that makes stuff for Joyo or Mooer, and licensed them to Fender, and that's what they're making.
Yep. That's my hot take.
Yeah, so I don't anticipate these being real winner pedals. Nothing in here is going to be the next Klon. Okay. Yeah. They'll be fine. They're going to be inexpensive pedals like DOD was years ago, or Ibanez was years ago, or Boss was before Waza, and all of that. Big deal. I mean, okay, so they have a pedal line now. And actually, some of their more expensive pedals are actually pretty good. like the Marine Reverb, the Marine Layer or
right.
something. That's a really, really good reverb. I actually like that. It's a reverb and delay, I think, in the same box. And I know somebody who's got one, and they were using it, and I was like, that sounds pretty damn good for what it is. So, you know, it's not a Strymon killer or anything like that, but for a reverb unit that has all the controls right on top of the unit, and it's not like super programmable or doesn't, I don't think it even has presets. It's kind of a really cool tool for somebody who wants those knobs under their fingers. So, you know, that kind of thing. And I know that there are listeners they're like, you can't say Fender made something good. You can't do it. Well, Fender makes good stuff all the time. The problem is some of the stuff they make has some sketchy quality, you know, maybe a few more warped necks out of the Fender factory, that kind of thing. But, you know, they're building a lot of stuff, so that's bound to happen. All right, can we switch topics now, or you got more stuff? I'm asking for permission because I don't want to cut you off.
Yeah, no, I don't. That was it, I think.
Okay. All right. So, NAMM. It actually happened this year.
Yeah.
Because I think we did an episode last year where like the NAMM that wasn't or something, and we were talking about how the summer NAMM last year, like it was like empty. So people had booths and didn't show up. I mean, it was like because the COVID thing was like people didn't know what the hell was going on, and in retrospect and in hindsight, like I think most of the companies probably could have gone to NAMM and not had anybody get sick because the numbers were so low during the summer for most places. But again, you want to, you know, you protect your employees, right? We got an industry of people keep using the word living wage. We can talk about that another time, but you know, they want to protect their employees, and I understand that. So, but anyway, so NAMM actually happened this year, Jim. And I know you're not aware of it because the coverage has been so shitty that how could you be aware of it, right? So
honestly, you know what's funny? It reminds me of, so I'm an Apple guy, right? I mean, there's my iPhone, I've got the iPad, I've got my Mac. I'm on a PC right now, but I do have a MacBook. And I gotta say this is what makes me laugh. WWDC.
Developer conference. Yeah,
the
developer conference
is coming
right.
up. Worldwide Developer Conference, is that what it stands for?
Yeah, I think so.
That's coming up, and I'm thinking to myself, that's exactly what happened with NAMM. It's like, this is coming to NAMM, this is coming to, and it's like, I've already seen so many, this is what the iPad Pro is going to look like, this is what the iPad's going to look like, this is what and I'm like, then why do I want to watch the WWDC coverage?
Well, you wouldn't want to watch WWDC anyway because it's developer focus. Yeah, they usually don't announce hardware at WWDC, so.
No, but they're talking about what's going to come in 16, and of course, there's all
in the OS if you're using Mac products, right? But
what we're going to get after we see 16.
Sometimes they'll announce something, but it's usually more a software focus conference rather than hardware. And people are actually kind of like burning up this year because they think that their virtual reality product is gonna be announced at the show, and that's not gonna get announced at the show. They're a year away from production.
But they're already talking about, this is what we think the MacBook's going to look like, and this is what we think the iPad's
They're not even going to launch them at WWDC. Like, that's why I'm like, this is silly.
But that's exactly what I was getting at. So here they are, right? There's the little bait in the water. Mm-hmm. Okay, let's get the sharks.
And it's going to be an OS 10 event. I mean,
right? Yeah, and it's that's what NAMM coverage that came up to NAMM has reminded. It's we're gonna have this, and it's very few surprises. So it's like, hey, look at us. We're standing in front of the booth with Ernie Ball. Hey, we're standing in front of the booth with so-and-so. And it's like,
yeah, so
all that stuff was already...
Right, right. So I think the interesting things about NAMM are really like the personal interaction. And I watch the coverage because I'm not watching for the product. A lot of times I'm watching for how the company behaves, who their salespeople are, how they treat the people they're talking to. What are the features they're prioritizing in the conversation? Because that's one thing that's really, really funny. When you go to a booth at a convention, especially for this kind of product, like you get the upsell that's in the sales documentation, but oftentimes they prioritize different information in person. So like, and we'll talk about the AMBEX later, but because that was part of my whole journey through this NAMM coverage. So basically, let's go back in time, right? Back to the Jurassic era of like 2010. When NAMM happened, the information would get onto the internet through text, right? Nobody was doing video back then. And you would pick up a Guitar World magazine, and they would try to get the issue out like right around NAMM, and you would see like their coverage, right? And that was how you got your information from NAMM. You got it either from a magazine or you got it from one of the text websites like Harmony Central or Guitar.com. And Premier Guitar was a thing back then too. Actually, so this is what, 12 years ago? No, it's probably even older than that at this point, because I think YouTube started in 2009, so there was starting to be coverage on YouTube at that time.
A little bit.
So this is why I was frustrated all weekend, because I had the opportunity to go to NAMM. I could have spent the money and I could have gone, right? My airfare could have been paid, and I just could have gone, and I didn't. And I didn't go because I was like, do I really want to go fly across country to, just do a marathon session running through this place and trying to capture video and stuff and talk to people and network? And it just didn't sound like an appealing thing right now. I got too many other projects going on, so I kind of just put it off. Like about 3 weeks ago was my do or die, and I was like, nah, this ain't the year. So, but I kick myself now, because so we live in the era of live streaming. We're live streaming this podcast. I live stream music performances on Twitch. You can go on a number of different apps and watch live streams all day long, and find live entertainment from actual folks sitting at their computer, right?
Right.
And/or out in the field with a camera and a live stream, apparatus, right? Like an ATEM Pro or something like that. Fast forward to what's going on at NAMM right now, and I found one live stream on, I think Friday afternoon, and they walked around for 2 hours and 45 minutes. And it was like, let us know in the chat what you want to see. And they were just totally fucking ignoring the chat. I was like, this coverage sucks.
Can I say something about that? Let us know in the chat what you think.
Yeah, don't ask us if you're not gonna, if you don't give a shit.
99% of these channels don't give two flying rats' asses what you put in the chat. You could say, "Suck my hairy ball sack" in the chat, and you know what they
You might get moderated.
Thumbs up, because they don't care. They just don't care.
All right.
And when they do, they take it like it's a front. It's like, you say something in the chat, and I'm not saying that. I rarely ever put anything in the chats. And 9 times out of 10, they'll say something like, "Tell us what you think in the chat." And do you ever see them even give you a like or anything? And there's only like 10 or 12 comments in the chat.
Yeah. I mean, like our show where there's like 1 or 2 comments per episode.
Yeah. I'm the only person that's commented so far.
Yeah, I know. How about that?
It's like, and I don't, we don't beg for that. And it's such a cheap, chintzy way of getting people to make comments in the chat. If you don't like what people say, like, they'll say, "Oh, well, this person said this about the color of my tie," or whatever in the chat. At least you got somebody to put some in the chat. That's what the YouTube algorithm is about.
Yeah.
That's what you were looking for. You weren't worried about what they said. You didn't care if they liked the blue color of the guitar. You just worried about the chat. I just wanted to say that, because it's just so often I see that in the chat, in the YouTube things, and I'm like, you know what? You don't care. You don't even get somebody to at least go through and like on the damn things. So just shut up about your say something in the chat stuff. You don't care.
So I won't name this channel. You can go look. Like, I'm sure you'll find out who it is. But they go and they're like, first thing he did was like, let's go to the Martin booth. And it's a guitar channel, right? So let's go to the Martin booth. And I'm like, wow. So we're going to go back to Martin and we're going to go look at a bunch of really inexpensive guitars that are basically built like trash. And then we're going to look at a bunch of really expensive guitars that are stratospherically expensive.
Nothing in between.
Nothing in between. Now, I'm not saying that a Martin built like trash sounds like trash. I'm just saying that, like, they're not well built. When you got a Stratobond neck, that's plywood. That's what it is. Yeah. We've talked about it on the show before. It won't warp. I can say that much about it. So they go in, and then, like, of course, the Martin guys come over, and they're like, oh, yeah, hey, what's up? And they walk them around the thing, and they're like, here, let me show you our diamond-studded, whatever fucking anniversary they want to make it this year guitar, right? Celebrating 3 million guitars built over the life of the company or whatever. And it's like, yeah, it's got diamonds in it, okay? And we're talking like right in the body. We're not even talking like in a fretboard or anything, like in the body, okay? And this guitar is probably $100,000 or $200,000. It's not going anywhere. It's going right back to the Martin Museum in Nazareth, Pennsylvania. That's where it's going. Right. Okay,
it's going to hang in that room that you've got when you walk in to go to the factory tour.
With all the other diamond encrusted guitars they built, you know.
Yep, the Harley Davidson one and the one they built for so and so. They weren't even like Gibson. Gibson, at least when they made the NASCAR ones, they sent them out to bars and shit. They don't even do that. They just like, we made this really super expensive guitar.
They're so high on the fact that they're making art. Like in their mind, their guitars are art. And they're so high on that they make these guitars that are just like, why? This isn't even good for promotion. Okay?
Right. Because who sees it?
So Yamaha made something that I saw that was just like on the wall there. They made a piano painting that you could play. Oh. Like sit down. It was actually a mechanical piano. Cool. And I was like, okay, that was probably really expensive, but that's an item that you could hang in your facility that no one else has, right? Like no one else is doing anything like that. or they could gift it to one of their artists or something like that. Somebody who's brought in Yamaha a lot of money over the years, maybe somebody like Carlos Santana, who was a big Yamaha endorser in the 80s. You know, somebody like that, right? Like when they're done with this conference, they don't have to haul that thing around forever. Or maybe they donate it to one of the big music retailers, like Sweetwater, to put on the wall or something like that.
There was a similar thing built, and the only reason I bring this up is because I was watching what's that guy, Beards and Gear or something?
Yeah.
Gear and Beards. And I had to laugh because he does the ridiculous reverb listings. Mm-hmm. And this week he had the huge
We should bring
guitar.
those back. We should bring ours back.
Yeah. We should. And it was 9 feet. It's a guitar that's 9 feet. And it weighs like, I can't remember what the number was. I was like, what's it weigh? Like 70, 80 pounds? No, it was like 200 pounds. I mean, it's ridiculously heavy. And it takes 4 people to lift it. I want to say it weighed over 300 pounds. And anyway, and I was like, that's a ridiculous NAMM piece that's actually gone around. I mean, it's on sale reverb. You could buy it right now if you get the money. And I can't remember how much it was, but it's like a ridiculous number. But if I was a business and I had bands coming through or whatever, I would think that, that's pretty cool. And it's $20,000. But if I had a really like the popular bar in Miami or something like that, put that thing up, I'd buy that thing.
So,
but you see what I mean?
Yeah. So anyway, this is the only live stream, right? And so they go from there and they kind of wander around. They end up over at the Reverend booth, and like because they're friends with the guy from Reverend. I forget what his name is. The guy that runs it.
Ken Haas.
Ken Haas, is that it?
Yeah. Yeah.
And then of course Joe Naylor's there too. Joe Naylor is there too.
Oh yeah.
He's the guy that actually founded the company and then sold it when they were no longer profitable and they decided to move production overseas and stuff. So anyway, then they end up over at the Ernie Ball booth, and then at the Abasi booth. And actually, they did show one company, and their name escapes me at the moment. They were seeking, and this is why I want to talk about Namm, because Namm's purpose has changed. It's very clear.
Right.
There was a company there who was seeking a distributor. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
This was a company, I think they're either made in Mexico or Southern California, and the guys are Mexican, right? Like, they're making these guitars, and the dude that was doing the live stream, he picked one up and played one. He's like, "Oh my God. Like, this is a really great instrument. Like, what the hell? Why are these not everywhere?" And they had these radical finishes that were almost like holographic finishes. And I'm not meaning like metal flake hollow stuff.
Right.
I'm talking like holographic finishes that you could see depth in it, like you'd see at the Sharper Image or something like that. And they were doing some wild stuff. And he asked the price, and he's thinking it's going to be $5,000 or $6,000. Guy says $3,500.
Wow.
And he says, for the special finish ones, those are like $3,500. And then he said, like, we're not really sure on the price for the lower end ones, but the common colors will be less expensive, significantly less expensive. And the cool thing was they had a toggle switch in them that took the electronics from Fender to Gibson. So, like, you got your Bumblebee cap on one side, and on the other side you have your typical Fender style cap, right? And it had humbuckers, but they were splittable, and they sounded really good as singles. And it was just like a whole interesting, and they were baked maple, and they had like radical bodies. They were sort of like Reverends in the way that they were styled, sort of. Kind of like a cross between a Reverend and an Explorer or something like that. And they had a couple of different body styles, and they were like a buzz. There were a lot of people at that booth. In fact, when the guy was standing there, Ryan Burke walks by, right? And I'm like, and then he stepped, of course, that's right up his alley. So he's like picking them up and playing them and stuff. And I was like, this is what Namm's going to be, right? Like, this is going to be companies, guys working out of their garage, going to either get bought by a bigger company or to, because that's what startups do, right? Or to go there to seek distribution so they can actually make their dream a reality.
Wasn't that the crux of Namm
30 years ago?
Like,
yeah.
Many years ago.
Like
even,
Jim Dunlop
40,
going there and stuff.
Right.
When they were a new company, when Dunlop USA was a new company, that was like what was going on at that time. You went to Namm if you had an innovative new product. Like, and Larry DiMarzio got his start there. And
you were looking to get it into those stores. Now, of course, that wasn't Sweetwater at the time. It wasn't even Guitar Center. It was just stores.
Everybody was super small at that time, too. It was like Fender was like putting out like 1,000 guitars a year, and some of these other companies, like a company like MXR, who were building pedals out of their basement, would go to Namm and pick up distributorship, and then they'd have mom and pops to sell to. That's what Namm was. Like, it's not this media blitz for us. It was always for mom and pop businesses to find product, right? And so even Sweetwater just did coverage this year, Jim. Sweetwater was walking around, and they were like, this is going to be at Sweetwater. Who cares? Yeah.
That was why I didn't watch a lot of it.
Yeah, so and then that the channels we normally watch, nobody went.
No, that's just it.
Or if they went, their coverage won't be out until Monday, Tuesday, and it's old news anyway.
Yep. Yeah, because I don't know if Andertons went or not, but I noticed that they didn't have. Usually they do like a live stream of them driving to Namm and stuff like that.
Chappers was there.
Chappers.
He said he wasn't going to be, and then he turned around and changed his mind like a week ago, and then he was there.
Yep. He said, because I saw one of his things where he said, I bought a new guitar, blah, 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 I'm going to be at Namm. I wasn't going, but I'm going.
Yeah.
And Casino, I watched Casino, they didn't go. I mean, there's so many
but there's a plethora of reasons not to go. I mean, number one, the elephant in the room, of course, is that Fender, Gibson, and PRS were not represented there, which means that all of the Fender family of brands, including the PA stuff that they own and all that shit, none of that went.
You're looking at Kramer, Jackson, Gretsch. I mean, all those things are not there. And so you've got, you had Music Man, Ernie Ball and Music Man. You had Ibanez. And
Which Ibanez's booth was hilarious. Their big feature was that they had the Hydra guitar that Steve Vai used on that the last album, and then they have new Pias coming, and then they had a prototype Pia, which is not an official model yet, but it's coming. It's gonna be, which is the Swirl, to commemorate 35 years of the Gem.
But see, that's what I was getting at. It's like PRS, Fender, and Gibson are trying to keep up and catch up to what they were behind. And so I could see why they're not going. And like you and I talked about before, who cares if another color of Silver Sky is coming, right? And so it's like,
I think Fender and Gibson and PRS decided not to go because they are now big enough to hold their own media events, and they can do it without.
And they can do it.
NAMM's investment.
That's right.
And
that's right. They save a lot of money.
When you're a big company like they are, and they go to NAMM, they're putting up more money than everybody else to put on a show. So, like, think about that. If you're Fender and you're going to NAMM, you're putting up enough money that you're helping prop up Gibson, and Gibson is putting up money to prop you up.
Right.
Like, think about how screwed up that is.
It's like, think about it like a mall. They're the anchors. Right? They're the Macy's and used to be Sears, JCPenney, whatever in your local area. But nobody goes to malls anymore. So now it's all just the little things. There's lids and there's
well, I mean, I don't think anybody would and if you're saying this, I kind of want to reach the computer and strangle you a little bit. Ibanez is not a little company. Okay.
No.
They are definitely not. They are at least one of the big five. Okay.
Right. Ibanez and Music Man. That's how I conceded that Ibanez and Music Man were the big ones there. But I'm just saying that just like the malls, a lot of the anchor stores are going.
I don't think Music Man has a horse in that race in terms of being big. Ernie Ball, on the other hand, definitely.
Well,
but
isn't Ernie Ball part of Music Man or part
they
of Music
own Music Man? But I'm just saying that's a small portion of their business. I know people like to think Music Mans are amazing and they're so popular. Believe me, you'd see a hell of a lot more Music Mans out in the wild if Music Man were as popular as you think they are. You know what I mean? Like if they were one of the big, you see plenty of Ibanez, but you don't see much Music Man in local clubs and stuff.
Right, but Ernie Ball isn't just the Music Man guitars or basses.
Right. It's the strings, it's the accessories, it's the cables and all that. Yeah. And that's where the bread and butter is from anyway.
And that's going to be always going to be the bread and butter of that company. It's just the way of the way the company is. But I think Ibanez, the reason they're so that it's still important to them, they're not in the US.
Right. Well, Ibanez so I don't know how Ibanez works because technically Ibanez doesn't make anything. Like, I don't know if you knew that or not. Like, they have a company back home that actually makes their stuff. So, Fujigen, okay? And so they're just a design house for Fujigen and Cortec, because Cortec makes all the Indonesian stuff.
Right.
So,
because from the very beginning, I think I remember seeing that on Josh Scott's show once about Fujigen and Ibanez and how the Tube Screamer wasn't even made by...
No, it was made by Maxon.
Made by Maxon. And then later by...
Yeah.
So that's... But again, what I'm saying is that might be a reason to have that there. But one of the things that of course, I didn't watch a lot of coverage, but... some of the people that were watching coverage have said a lot of the guitars this year are signature guitars. It's like,
so there was like a channel that was saying that like, the new stuff, and we know it was Phil McKnight. Like, that's the trend this year, signature guitars. No, honestly, I don't remember and that's the stupidity of this, right? So, all right, there were a lot of signature guitars But that's because Ibanez and Music Man were there, right? They were the only two big,
and that's
like,
their bread and butter too.
They're not even the big guitar companies. Let's be real. What Ibanez and Music Man are, they are the companies that like the YouTubers like to prop up because the YouTubers get product from them. Okay,
right,
and that's part of it, right? And so there's a relationship there. But when I see Phil McKnight say that, is I kind of back of my mind was like, no, those are the guitars you care about. Like, that doesn't necessarily mean that's the trend. Those are the guitars you care about, which is okay, right? But it's pretty clear he's, laser focused on the things that he wants to buy because he thinks they might be worth something. So like the Pete Thorne Sir, which is hilarious. Yep. I think they want for that thing like $3,700 or something like that for a Strat with a humbucker in it. Not that I think Pete's a bad player or anything or like has bad taste. Yeah. I think there's a surtax.
Sir certainly likes the smell of their own farts.
Yeah, they got a surtax because they choose to operate in one of the most expensive areas of California and want to pay their people. And this is where I was talking about earlier, the living wage. Sir definitely likes to ratchet up their value a little bit. So, okay. And then so like Rev was there, right? And Rev was showing off a new pedal, and I think it was a Steve Lukather pedal or something like that. I could probably let me go look at Rev's website where we're talking about this. So I just as a to kind of get off the topic of like the coverage, there was stuff at NAMM, okay?
Right.
And I think a lot of it got overlooked because, well, there's nothing here from Fender, Gibson, PRS, and so a lot of the YouTubers didn't go, and then it ended up being this whole thing. Well, it's not just that, right? It's like COVID is still a thing, and travel is still a pain in the ass for a lot of people because the airline industry is now charging more for tickets and all this different stuff, because they're at lower capacity than they were before.
Well, so, I said this.
No,
before.
Sean Tubbs. It's not Lukather. It's a Sean Tubbs pedal, which he's no joke either. No. So and it's called the Tilt Overdrive, and it's a boost and drive circuit in the same pedal, and it has their Tilt EQ design in there. And I guess they worked on this pedal for like 2 or 3 years. Like this is a long ass project, and they were talking about how strenuous that was. So let's let me show I'm gonna show the audience. Hang on. I have a picture up. There you go. Tilt Overdrive.
Nice. Well,
and it's got his name laser etched in it.
Of course.
It's kind of cool.
Which is cool.
I want to know what happened to number 2 and number 1. This is serial number 3. Where's number 2 and number 1?
It's funny. We talk about those things. That's nice. I like that. It was Trogley today. I was talking about some of the stuff in the Gibson demo shop because he does this weekly thing.
Yeah,
and he was talking about the serial number. And he goes, if this was 20202020 or something like that, this would be the one to get.
Who cares? Do you think some collectors like sitting out there going, man, that serial number's so fucking cool. Like, I'm going to pay an extra $10,000 for that one.
I'm going to turn this guitar around just so people can see the serial number. I'm gonna put it back first.
There is
you can look at the serial
number. Serial number that matters. One, and that is 1.
1. That's right.
It's very simple. It's very simple.
I mean, unless you're interested, like you're 55 or whatever when the guitar comes out, so you want number 55.
Yeah.
That might be the one that you want because of that weird thing.
Right. But that's specific to you and doesn't necessarily make the value of the instrument go up. Okay.
No. But oh my god, some of the things he says about the guitars, I go, oh my god.
So, are you familiar with Eastman guitars?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, they're not my vibe. I get it. That 60s Jetsons thing.
Well, I'm going to show you something.
Sure.
And I want to see. Yeah, let me show you something because Eastman's got a new guitar coming out, and this is clearly going for the throat of a company that we all sort of probably are vaguely aware of. What does that remind you of, Jim? Does that look kind of like a Novo to you?
Oh my God! Right in the face.
Yeah.
Juliet, wherefore out thou, Juliet?
And these are no joke, okay? So it's a solid body. They are worn in, okay? Not like super relic, but worn in. They have bare knuckle pickups in them, factory, okay? Which, take it or leave it, some people like bare knuckle, some people don't.
Yep.
They have the German carve on the neck, and the headstock is. I mean, this is like an interesting design. Even on the tuner side, there's a stack, right? And then they're doing it with P90s as well as humbuckers,
Yep.
Okay.
Yep.
These are gonna be it's got a USA Bigsby on them. I don't know where they're being made at. But honestly, I looked at these and I went, well, I don't really have a reason to buy a Novo now. Because like the black one looks great. The one in the picture up top, I'm scrolling up, you'll see it in a second. It's just worn the right way to look cool. And I saw they picked it up off the wall. Of course, they had the prototypes there, and they were playing them, and they looked like the finishes looked like they were hand painted on them. I mean, it was like hilarious looking. It looked like a vintage guitar that's been rode hard and put away wet. And I was like, what are they gonna get for these guys? So I actually let's see what they're gonna get for them. We'll go to a dealer locator and see. Do they have any major dealers? I wonder here in the States.
I don't know.
I want to say like CME. I want to see like Chicago Music Exchange probably deals them.
I know that black one's $2,240.
Yeah,
according to their site.
Eastman. No, they don't. Oh yeah, no wait, they do. I just want to see if they have pre-orders for these out yet. It'll be interesting to see what these go for, because Eastman's not known for being like super expensive. I think they're imported, aren't they?
Yeah.
Are they Chinese?
Oh, I don't know, but I do know they come from overseas. I thought they were from England. No?
No, I don't think so. I forget offhand where they come from, but I'm thinking it's Far East. So, but they're like the high quality Far East stuff. Because I remember their 335s are really, really sought after. In fact, I think we have somebody in the Facebook group that has one. He's got a 335 style, like the T486 here, something like that.
Well, they're definitely going after that market.
Yeah, so these are going to be hollow, or these are going to be solid body. I suspect these guitars are going to come in right around $1,000, and like that's kind of what we need to see is some real stiff competition at about $1,000. So, I saw these and I was like, I don't normally go for that sort of thing. But like I was like, all right, yeah, all right. You know, that's a classic looking relic guitar if you want to get that vibe going. P90s, yes, and also humbuckers that are actually decent ones to start with. So, and they do.
Asian.
So they're talking about they do different. So they do the antique varnish, right? They do true tone gloss, which is like your brand new stuff. And then two-tone vintage gloss, which is like aged, old finishes.
Yeah, so, they're made in Beijing.
Yeah,
China.
Yeah, that doesn't surprise me. These are going to be because they mentioned they were like they're waiting on when they're going to show up. So there's a price for like that particular model right there is going to be $1,700. But they don't have pricing for the new ones yet. I don't think. Oh, they do. $2,240. For antique varnish, so we don't know what they're going to be like with the other finishes.
Yeah, without.
So anyway, if you're looking for Novo, you might want to consider one of these.
You don't want to pay that kind of money.
You don't want to pay $5,000 or $6,000 for a Novo. So because I think they were 4,400, I think, custom, and I think they've gone up since then. So, and then of course this is the big spill, right? So we talked about Music Man. Of course, they did have an interesting announcement, so this is worth actually having a little bit of a conversation about. We have these guitars that look very familiar, and that's because the Kaizen, which is that model, is based on Well, it's designed by Tosin Abasi. Let's just put it out there.
Yep.
So what do you do
Yep.
about Abasi guitars now? Because Abasi Concepts, their guitars are I think they're about $4,000, right?
Yep.
So now they're going to have this, which I suspect will be around $3,000. I haven't seen anywhere where they publish the price, and they are multi-scale. So it's the first, I think this is the first Music Man multi-scale, which,
Right.
do they do the 8-string JPM model, the John Petrucci in I wonder. I think that came multi-scale as well. Because once you start getting into eight strings and stuff, like, you sort of need it.
I think that was one of the most interesting things that came out of this year's NAMM, honestly.
So here's a shitty thing, right? So, like, the Cutlass has been the model they've been shitting on lately. Those are butt ugly finishes, I think. But these are totally aimed at the Ultra, the Fender Ultra, right? I don't care for the Stingray myself. I wanted to see, just while we're here, because we talk about Music Man in the show every once in a while, I want to see the finishes for the Cutlass they're currently doing, because we've talked about that on the show before. I almost bought a Cutlass. I got pricing for a Cutlass twice, because I was interested in one, and every time I've looked at them, like, they haven't had good finish. Yeah, so they're still doing vintage tobacco and powder blue for the humbucker one. What a joke. And then this one is still going to be the vintage tobacco and powder blue. Okay, so yeah, they're doing the same one for both. And of course, when the prices went up from $2,000 to $2,600, I said, you're fucking high. This is a Strat killer. It's nothing but that. So don't think you're going to get $3,000. You are not, sir. There's no tax for Ernie Ball in my mind. So,
no.
This was the other company I wanted to talk about. So Reverend launched their 25th anniversary stuff, and I think they actually did that prior to NAMM, but it's worth mentioning. So they did these, right? Which this is a cool finish. I like the look of them. It has the the XXV 12th fret marker, which might be your jam, might not be your jam. But this is also, so they're doing this Billy Corgan signature, Z1. They're also doing it in the 25th anniversary finish, I think.
That's the one I'm kind of.
Yep, there it is.
I've been watching for.
So that one is that one was really cool. They had that one in there, and they were demonstrating and stuff. Hardtail bridge, rail hammer pickups. Rail hammer pickups are actually going to be. I don't think this is a new thing, but you can now buy them outside of Reverend guitars. So they were talking about new designs coming from Railhammer, including they have a split single now. So it's actually like a humbucker sized looking pickup, but it's actually a split single coil.
That's cool.
So it's like a Comanche, GNL Comanche, where the pickups are two coils for two different, like a P bass.
Right.
Okay. So I thought that was cool. And then this is actually the thing that I found out about, like, most recently, because the company that we all forget that still props up a massive amount of the industry is Yamaha, right? And I'm not talking about guitars, because they're massive on the other side of things. They're one of the few publicly traded instrument manufacturers where you can go and buy their stock, right? And they have Rev Star, but they also own Line 6. And Line 6 is so big now that they should be considered right alongside Ibanez and Music Man as the hottest companies in NAMM this year. And they didn't have anything to launch, which was hysterical to me.
Not a thing.
Yeah, because
they didn't have anything. I found that surprising.
Well,
Shocking.
I was expecting, so like last NAMM that they attended, they did a big announcement about the next Helix update, and I was expecting that. And that may have happened, but I wasn't paying attention, so I will probably go look for that after the show's over. So anyway, Rev Star Professional, made in Japan. So, the Rev Stars are kind of known for being like an inexpensive line of guitars from Yamaha, except for these. And I think these were actually announced before the show, but they were showing them off, and they were actually like having artists play them and stuff on stage. And these look really wild. Okay, so you've got a chambered body that is, And this is the kicker, right? So it's not just a chamber body for weight relief. They designed it with acoustics in mind. So to get the guitar more resonance, it's got a 5-way switch. It has, I'm not sure exactly how this works, but it's a passive boost. So I assume that's something like, who are the Tom Anderson Guitar Works? I'm assuming that's something like they have, right. Which is probably just removing tone controls or something to get more boost out of the guitar. They're humbuckers, and then they have P90 style single coils. They're custom designed, of course, and they use all Nico magnets, which is nice. But you're going to get that at this price point because we haven't seen the price yet. This is interesting. So they didn't talk about what the process is. I have a feeling this is akin to some of the things that Fujigen is doing for Ibanez, like the cryo treatment to guitars and all that. But they're saying that their guitars are artificially aged to respond differently. Like an old vintage guitar that's been played within an inch of its life, which I think is really cool. It's also interesting that they're using this as a marketing thing. We think about this in acoustic guitars, right? Like if you play an acoustic guitar more, the top breathes and eventually it, starts to resonate in a different way, and it becomes a different instrument than what you first bought, right? Whereas you can take, $400 acoustic and play the shit out of it and it'll sound like an $800 acoustic. So this is what they're going for though. $3,200 MSRP. That's not necessarily MAP, but it'll probably be close to that. Now, right. I know that if you go to your dealer and you ask them, you can get a deal on a Yamaha. These are probably going to be right around $2,500, I think. But, I mean, if they are what they purport to be, and, right. I mean, they're a unique thing in the marketplace, and I listen, I know everybody's like, Yamaha doesn't make good guitars. Yeah, they do. They've always made good guitars. The problem is that Yamaha makes ugly guitars. And I think the Rev Star is actually a really, really nice looking guitar for what they normally do. If you don't believe me, go look at Pacificus, because they were one of the ugliest Strat copies that you can that you can find on planet Earth. So
yeah, who's the guy? Shoot, English guy. He's Welcome to Friday Fretworks. Oh, Chris Buck. He was talking about his new Rev Star that Yamaha built for him with a pair of P90s and blah blah blah, and sounded good. But Chris Buck can make a cheese sandwich sound good. So
yeah,
it's like
Jay Leonard J was demonstrating one, and I was like, yep. It's Jay Leonard J.
I know.
It's like you could get him 6 strings on a milk carton, and he'd make that thing like just sound like $1 million. So it's like,
what would be cool? You mentioned that. What would be cool is to have Jay Leonard J playing a milk carton guitar with "Have You Seen Me?" and it would be Jay Leonard J's own picture.
Well, it was cool because he was playing on a stage, and then behind him he had they had a picture of him with his glasses on, and it had his Instagram logo underneath it and everything. I was like, how self-serving. Here you are playing a concert, and then there's this big sign saying your name and like your Instagram location and stuff behind you, and it's like, wow, dude, damn. It's like you didn't have a choice in it, but
yeah, I love Jay Leonard J's playing. He is very, very. Same with Chris Buck. I mean, obviously,
both of those guys got real strong fundamentals, but like Jay Leonard J is like one of those dudes that just his rhythm is just freaking. Oh, that's all you need to play guitar is to practice rhythm. That's what I'll tell you. Because if you can do anything and you can play chord, if you could do anything on the guitar correctly, play your chords in time, and everything else falls into place.
Yeah,
like
he's just incredible. I mean, seriously, he's just got it.
Mm-hmm.
That's got to be one of the best guitar players, as far as like you talked about. He can play anything, and it's like, have you ever seen a drummer?
He can sing too.
Yeah, you'll see him play a drum thing, but when they go to a solo, they can't get back.
Yeah.
They're losing timing. Jay Leonard J can play a funky thing, go out, do this incredible, and then come back
and just nail it.
Never lost.
He never lost the one. Like he's right on it. You know. Yeah. So I switched topics because this is really, we already started to touch on this, and I wanted to get to the coverage first. So like, there's other stuff. Amp X was announced and like shown off. There was a video on Friday. Actually, the video was more informative than the NAMM coverage was. Basically, it's a half working prototype he's showing, but it's all software stuff that they need to fix now at this point. He did talk about the fact that they're going to take the combination jack screw up and turn it into regular XLRs.
They are.
Yeah,
okay.
and because they already have a stereo out you can use for regular 1/4 inch. You just need to have a splitter, an insert cable for it, so it's not a big deal. But it's one of those, kind of like weird guffaw moments. But I saw, like, when the guy was doing the walkthrough, I saw his booth, right? I saw blue guitar there, and there was a crowd of people around that booth. And I'm just like, wow, there's probably going to be a lot of coverage on this. And there's like 2 videos show up, and it's like, what the hell?
He reminds me of Scrubs. The funniest show nobody watched. I mean,
yeah, dude, like, he's starting to pick up steam. He would not have sunk the amount of, because he's been very open about this. He's spending his personal money to prop blue guitar up. If he didn't believe in this, he wouldn't be doing it, because he'd be broke. And this is a project that has taken 5 years to get to the stage where he's at. He's got another 6 months to go. And he basically said, like, we're not broke, but we're in trouble. Like, if this doesn't work out for us, we're in trouble. So I have a feeling, but he says, it's a 10-year development cycle, so they got 10 years to recoup the money. But it's like one of those things where, if you have any doubts, realize that this guy is literally staking his life on this. I mean, he's putting up a lot of money.
His livelihood is in there.
Mm-hmm. So anyway, go watch that video. We covered the Amp X launch last week. Basically the tones are there. He showed a couple of clips. I played the Marshall stuff, and then at the end he dials up basically what sounds like a Tweed Deluxe, and it sounds like a freaking Tweed Deluxe, and that is not something we have seen out of the other 2 Amp 1 products. And he goes through some of the delays and stuff. So he has a copy of his Hughes and Kettner tube Replex, which is like a delay that he designed. It's a tube echo plex with a digital with a digital echo in it, right? So it's the tube preamp and everything surrounding it. It's a really cool pedal. It's a giant fucking hog on the pedal board though. And I'm actually hoping he reissues it as a smaller stomp box too. But it's in there and it sounds identical to the real deal. So, and he's like, I can't go on stage without one. And so he's like, now I can use this and it stands in place of mine. So, that's cool. I think it's cool. Your mileage may vary. If you're interested in smaller rigs and tubeless setups or like tube light setups, that's definitely a place to look. So what I wanted to talk about in this next segment though was why didn't they show up? Meaning Fender, Gibson, PRS, right? And I think we sort of covered this already, but I just want to kind of like jump back onto it a little bit because I think there's some other reasons why they didn't show up. I think Fender, Gibson, and PRS are all sort of aware of the faux pas of a media disaster. If they show up and their salespeople come down with COVID, like, it's going to be aired in the public because they're large companies, and large companies don't generally weather those storms very well.
No.
So I think that's a big part of it. I think for Gibson built the garage for a reason. They're not going to attempt NAMM anymore. That's just not going to happen for them. That is their NAMM.
But they haven't been doing it for a long time before this, so COVID was not the reason they stopped. They went in
2019 though, didn't they? I thought that because they were like trying to get back on track because they blamed Juskowitz for not going, and now they're not there again, which suggests either they have either outgrown it or there is a good
Yeah,
reason for them not to be there.
I guess timing wise, their return to it was to show, hey, look, here's the new Les Pauls and the new, SGs and our new lines, and we're doing this stuff, and we've gone back to the basics. We've got rid of the push pulls and blah blah blahs and the standards and this, that, and the other thing. So let's get back to
which was a heretic. You can't have a push pull on a standard. No. Oh, good God.
Unfortunately, people like Trogley have convinced people that they shouldn't have it. But anyway, so not because he wants to convince people, it's because he convinces them that, hey, look at this guitar.
Real Les Pauls don't have that.
I was willing to pay $12,000
unless you put it in yourself.
and oh my God, I'm gonna have to sell it because this has a scratch right here, which makes it useless. Anyway, so and he's got a show that people watch, and he convinces people.
Some people watch it. He's not a big YouTuber by any stretch.
No.
Nor are we, for that matter.
More for the comedic value.
We're tiny. So, look at our subscriber count, people. Like, we're tiny. If you haven't, like and subscribe.
Yeah, please.
Hit the notification bell.
That we will beg for. And you can actually comment, and we will see it, and we will read it.
Hey, listen. We are growing. The podcast numbers, I didn't tell you, Jim, they're the highest they've been since 2019. And we had that one fluky month where our numbers were like 3 times their normal amount. But other than that, this is the best we've done since basically Gearfest, I think, in 2018.
Awesome.
So we're in really good shape on numbers right now.
Yeah, I think we have something different, and we don't care.
I think it's just at that point now.
We don't care about, we might say or do something that other people, whatever. Be who you are. And I think that's what our general gist is. But anyway, Gibson came back, but then of course COVID hit right before they would have had a chance to come back again, and maybe gave them a chance to go, you know what? Here's the Gibson Garage, just like you said, because they did build it during the COVID thing. Here's the Gibson Garage, and here's the thing, and we're in Nashville, and NAMM happens once a year here too,
and they now do not have to pay for anyone else to prop up their facility either, because that's a big part of it, right? Like, you go and there's collateral marketing that happens that might actually rob you of sales, which is part of why I like. Listen, Fender and Gibson and PRS do not need to go to NAMM to make deals with businesses to sell their products.
No.
Now, I will say this. I did notice something that was going on at NAMM this year.
Businesses go to them.
I did notice something that was going on at NAMM this year that was kind of surprising to me. And I think might end up being an ultimate future for that event. Some of these companies were selling product at NAMM right there on the floor. And they were not in the past allowed to do that. It's not illegal. It's just NAMM, the National Association of Music Merchants, wouldn't allow that. But I think they made exceptions this year. And it may have even been you had to pay a little bit more. But honestly, for some of these smaller companies, like if they did that, they could prop NAMM up. Because, like, could you imagine Reverend Guitars coming out with an inventory to NAMM? I mean, they would, right? They would, most certainly. We all know that the deals happen on Sunday. Like, show up at the hotel, whatever, and room 230, and then like we'll give you a guitar, because they don't want to carry that shit back. They don't want to ship that stuff home. Like, they would much rather dump it for cheap prices in a lot of cases.
Well, that's how that Randy Rhoads Jackson that I've talked about. By the way, the background on the other two is those other two Jackson does own.
Okay.
And they're the only two, by the way, that Randy got his hands on.
Okay.
So the third one, he never got his hands on. So that might be why, even though it was sold accidentally, they're not willing to prop up a bunch of money to get it back.
Right.
Care. So anyway,
seems legit.
Yeah. So I think the reason they didn't show up is they don't have to. Now, there's a big difference. and it started happening before the whole COVID thing, but Namm didn't have to, or I mean, PRS, Fender, Gibson, and to a lesser extent, some of the other companies, the big companies, because think about it, the bulk of their sales, most likely, are through Guitar Center and
Right.
Sweetwater and Thomann and,
and
stuff like
a
that.
handful of mom and pops that can afford to buy in.
Right. And so when you think about those large sales forces, so to speak, there's no need. They go to them. Guitar Center goes to it. They're online looking in their little database things or making their phone calls and going, "Hey, what have you got coming? What can we get?" And there used to be regional reps that would go around and they'd stop by. Those regional reps are pulling back more and more.
Yeah.
And the regional reps are, because the regional rep covering bigger and bigger turfs.
Yeah.
And why? Because more and more stuff is just being done online. They don't need Bob to come in and show their wares. They saw it online. They're like,
Jim.
"Okay, we want an exclusive. Give me an exclusive. What can you make for me that nobody else has? We'll make an iced tea burst. Okay, thanks. All right, we've got something we can sell for a $200 upcharge."
Do you remember back when we started this show, we did an episode called Pig and a Poke, where we talked about people not buying guitars online, and you were like, you didn't want to do it. But that's changed. And I want to point out, we said that, I said at least, I don't remember what you said in the episode, but I said, it's only that way now. Like in 5 years, you're going to be buying online. Because that's right. It's just the mode, right? Like that's the industry and the way it's going. And COVID obviously accelerated this even further. But I think like even you and I were just basically like at that point going into COVID. I had bought the Ibanez AZ that I had then returned. And I think I'd bought something else on another guitar sight unseen online that was not used. So
at the time that we had that discussion, I think I'd only bought 1 or 2 guitars ever online that I hadn't seen, touched, felt, done. And to be completely honest, you look over my shoulder, I got
one of them still up there.
And that one still got the sticker on it because it's probably going to get sold. I'm holding on to it. I think I'll make a couple $100 on the deal.
What, on that Squire?
At Telly. Well, right now it's like $200 more.
I know, man. You don't have to explain that to me. I know what the hell's going on in this industry.
But my point that I'm making there is that the guitar industry and the changes that they're making is we're buying more and more online, but other than that, Les Paul custom, which that's a big ticket item, don't get me wrong, a very big ticket item to buy online and on sight unseen. And I called and I talked to the guy. I asked him all kinds of questions before I pulled the trigger on it. But it was in Pensacola, Florida. But they did say, "Hey, if you don't like it, 2 weeks and send it back, or 10 days, something like that."
Yeah, for that amount of money, I would be like, I need a personal guarantee.
But going back to that, I still think a guitar is very personal. Maybe it's because we're so used to, at a certain level, we're so used to guitars being flat that there's like, if you buy a Fender Squire Bullet, Telecaster at Guitar Center, Sweetwater, wherever, ZZ Sounds or your local mom and pop,
the quality's gotten good enough to support buying online.
Right, it's going to be the same across the board. It's going to be good. Very rarely will you get a broken or damaged product.
So if you're a dealer, do you need to go to Namm and put hands on a guitar?
Exactly. Do you? No.
And actually, I look for Fender to announce their own event.
Yeah,
I do. I think Fender next year will probably have their own Namm style event, and it might be at the same time as Namm. Because I think the Namm show is actually going to be a thing. I don't think they're going to do Winter Namm anymore. I think it's just going to be the Namm show. And it'll be because nobody was going to the one in Nashville anyway, because it was too far. Most of the music equipment industry is centered around California, and it was too far for the California folks to travel. And it was like very Gibson specific. Gibson relocated to Nashville in the or was in the 80s. And so it like sort of fit that mode, but, and there's a lot of East Coasters that still exist, but they're generally on the smaller side. So if you have your two biggest benefactors, you know, like if in Fender, right? Fender is probably the biggest benefactor, let's be real, pulling out because they're not going to go to Nashville. And then you had Gibson pulling out because they didn't want to go to California because it costs a lot of money.
Yeah.
So I mean, that's just my thought process on the whole thing. I think that's really why the NAMM show kind of collapsed the way it did. It was,
yep.
And it isn't collapsed. Everybody says NAMM is dead. NAMM is dead. Long live NAMM. It isn't dead. Okay, it's just not in good shape. And it's going to change. It's going to morph, and it's going to be more about obtaining distributorships, obtaining, you know, a market, making those deals with mom and pops that still exist, maybe even propping up those mom and pops. I mean, hell, Reverb has had one of the biggest booths there for the last 5 years. And I suspect we're going to see more of that going on. And I suspect you will see more education for the industry, like, you know, teaching business owners, you know, sales tricks and whatever, and how to market themselves online, because NAMM is an association, and I work for an association, so that's like very near and dear to my heart, the understanding that, like, yeah, they're a professional services association. They are providing services to a profession, which is music merchants, and so for them, like, this isn't necessarily about the trade show aspect of it. NAMM will still continue to exist. You will still have a trade show floor. It will not be the Consumer Electronics Show for musicians, although there's still a lot of stuff being shown. I think it's going to be more testing the waters for new products from companies that you haven't heard of before.
Right.
So, and I think it's okay. Personally, I like that. So,
yeah.
All right, segment 4. And I didn't really have a lot worked out for this. I thought we could leave this fairly open-ended. I was actually thinking more like things you've learned from NAMM, but I left it broad because I know that, like, you didn't watch all the NAMM coverage all weekend, and I actually didn't watch it all weekend. So I actually finished my EP this weekend, the new EP that's coming out. So that's gonna...
Nice.
I have one guitar solo left to do. It's not completely finished, but it'll be done tomorrow. So, not 6 months worth of work, but like 4 months worth of work, 5 months worth of work concluded today. I'm in a pretty good mood. Needless to say, it was pulling teeth, and I learned some things along the road. So I'm going to share. This is my second EP that I've done. I don't have any real desire to do a full-length album, not until I get enough material together. We might redo some of this stuff or whatever and make a full-length album later. There's talk of Tony and I working on doing a, what do you call it? A concept album of some sort at some point in the future. I don't know where what that would be like. And we haven't played live. I mean, we're starting a band. We have some names picked out that we're kind of like batting back and forth. We're getting really close on that, so that'll obviously probably get announced on the show when that happens. But we're still looking for a drummer. That's a challenge. But the things I've learned during this process, so like, number one, I have always been a very like hands-on, I'll just do it myself kind of person. And this is like the first time where I've done a project where I'm like, holy shit, I can't do it all myself anymore. I can't. I've got too much time invested in other things, having kids, work, the Twitch thing, which is now consuming some portion of my time, even though I'm not even active right now. This show clearly is and this show is actually like a really small amount now. I've reduced the show used to be like this amount, and now it's like this amount because I've gotten everything down to where like I can just do it in OBS and like not have to do all this other thing. But it's becoming very clear to me from that perspective, like I need to focus my effort and my time on specific things. The other thing is I'd always talked about on the show, and I've talked about in real life, was that which the show isn't real life, it's infotainment, folks. I talked about having home studio, right? Where I could rent out my services to record other people. And I'm kind of getting to the point where I'm like, I've started to collect some of the stuff. I've got microphones, and those are always things that I'll need as a musician. Like, no problem there. Like, I don't have a problem owning microphones. But I'm just kind of like backing off of that idea now and being like, I'm a guitar player. And what I really want to do is play freaking guitar. And I don't really want to fuss with mixing my projects. I don't really want to fuss with mastering my projects. I don't mind recording. It's a grueling, brutal process for anyone who's ever actually done a professional recording. If you have never put yourself under the microscope like that and really like sat there and gone, man, this is just not to the level of any record I've ever bought. And realize you got a lot of learning to do. It's a learning experience, right? And you're talking about you guys putting together original music. You're going to experience that, Jim. Because I know you've recorded stuff in the past and like all that, but with the tools that are available today, when you look at the time alignment shit and you're looking and you're like, I'm that off? Like, what? And even though it sounds fine, like in the room, and then you look in the recording thing and you put your headphones on and you're like watching the transport move across and you're like, oh my God. Like, I'm seriously like a half beat off there. Like, what the hell? Or like, I'm a 16th note off there. I didn't have anything going on like that, which I gotta say, like, surprised the shit out of me, because normally when I record, like, that's always the issue. Timing, I gotta sit with a metronome and work out certain things to get them so I can get them perfect, right? Or I gotta do a lot of takes to make something sound right. And I found myself actually using takes for attitude on this project, which was like totally different slant on how I normally do it, because we were getting like, since if it was myself, like I would just spend forever working on this, right? But because it's a project and we have goals, I'm like, I can't burn time doing 96 takes on this, which we'll get to that in a second. Yep. And so like, at some point along the path, I decided, well, this part I'm just going to record and I'll have to do punch-ins. Like, this part's a little off. I'll do a punch in here. I'll punch in here and fix this. And that expedited the process some. I got to this last song, the song before the last song, which we knew was going to be tough, because it is very much like me interplay with the singer, and the rest of the instrumentation is like basically following the guitar part. And there's literally like, okay, it's an A-B-A structure, and B has vocals and it also has a guitar solo in it, and A also has vocals and has a guitar solo in it. And then the outro A is just me by myself with vocals. And there's a part in the intro that's like that too. And it's like, oh shit, because now I'm literally carrying this thing, and I have to make signals and stuff when we play it in the room, because it's not a set structure. Like, if the solo goes on too long, the solo just goes on too long, right? And so what ends up happening is I just sit down and like, I had to finite things. I had to say, like, this solo is going to be 8 bars or it's going to be 4 bars. And then we were moving things around, and I'm like, oh shit, now I only got 2 bars to do, or 8 bars to do it instead of 16. And so it has my longest guitar solo on record in it, and I'm not rambling, which I don't know how the fuck that happened, because this is a 7-minute and 30-second song. It's long, okay? And it has probably my most well thought out solo in it too, which is the first one. But the second one, it was like, nah, we're just going to go for it. So I'm recording this the other night. Okay. I had scratch solos. I wiped them out. I had to redo the rhythms. I redid the rhythm tracks 3 times because I played it wrong the first time. I played it more correct the second time, and then finally got it right the third time. And it wasn't just time alignment and rhythm. It was, I literally was not playing it right. I was missing dynamics. And so I change all that up. I get all that good and tight and make that all work. And then I knew I got the solo right. So at 9:00 on Friday night, I started on the solo. I went to bed at 1-ish. And I did 96 takes. 96 takes. Now,
were you able to comp one out of that?
No, because I wanted a whole take.
Oh,
like the solos, I'm like, no, this is going to be a whole take. So what's funny is I did 96 takes. I did 50 of the whole solo. And I did like 45 of a punch in for this outro to the solo, like the final lick, right?
Right.
And it's got some very specific stuff going on. And I flubbed it in the take that I was like, this is a good take. I like this one. I flubbed it and I was like, I can fix that. And I couldn't. And because I was so tired by that point, like physically, right. My pinky hurt, like, because there's a whole thing with pinky pull off and stuff in there. And I was just like, the only time I can ever remember being like physically like, God damn, it hurts to play. And that's saying a lot because I done things like bleed all over my guitars. So I'm like, it's just not working. I was going to come back and do it in the morning. And I came back and I sat down at the computer and I went and listened to the take that I scrapped and was like, I got to redo that lick. And I'm like, you know what? No, I don't. I stopped myself and I listened to it and I go, yeah, it's off. It's the half beat off for the beginning of this lick. And the lick sounds like I'm just kind of grasping. It's like I'm gasping and grabbing for breath or something. And I'm like,
right.
It's all mushed together and rushed. And I'm like, you know what? That's the attitude of this. We're just going to leave it. And I did. And so that's going to be the one that I send to our mix engineer when we find somebody, and they're going to be mixing that. And they're probably going to reach out to me like, you sure you don't want to fix this? And I'm going to be like, no. And there was a second solo in that song. As I already said, there's like a long one, like a 32 bar solo or something. May even be longer than that. Might be 64 bars. Could very well be. And I went and I was like, I'm going to redo that one too. And by the time I got done with the other one, after 96 takes and just going through hell, I was like, fuck it, I'm not doing it.
I'm not doing it. Nope.
And there was one more challenge. One more. So the outro rhythm, the outro A section. Remember I told you I'm playing by myself. There's no click right there because I wanted it to be realistic feeling. So what we did was I just turned the click off and then track that section.
Right.
And so I have no idea what the tempo is there. And it does drift and it slows down. And it's supposed to. Mm-hmm. And I let it happen. And then I done this on the previous take. Oh, and it dawns on me. I'm like, holy shit. Tony's been working on vocals for that section. I can't change that. And I need to. Oh. So I'm like, what am I going to do? So I actually doubled it with the correct feel. I don't know how the hell I got through it, but I did. And that's what's going to be on the thing. I did it. I took 20 takes, I think. Just to make sure I got everything right. And like had something I felt comfortable with no punch-ins on that, by the way. Like that was just 20 takes and I got on the 20th one. I was like, all right, good. The song I did today, I recorded a whole track today. So it was like, that whole thing took me, because I'd been working on that song specifically for like 3 weeks. And today I sat down and I recorded a whole tune. And it was like a complicated tune. There's like arpeggiated stuff everywhere. And I do need to do the solo on that one. But the solo is not going to be a 96 take solo. I can tell you that right now, because the solo that's on it right now, that scratch solo, is like, it's okay. And I was just kind of dicking around with my guitar and improvising. I was like, yeah, this is going to be fun. It's a weird chord progression to play against. In fact, I might actually have the text file of it up. No, I don't. It's in Power Tab somewhere. But there's like it's E9. No, it's an E7 to E flat or E flat 9, like E add flat 9, and then E7 sharp 9, and then it's like an A flat, or no, it's an A sharp 13 or something. Yeah, it's an A sharp 13, dominant 13th. That's the chord progression for part of that solo. There's more to it than that, but that's like the last 4 chords. So I'm gonna have a hell of a time playing against that. Except that I already have done it, so it's not terrible. But
at least you wrote it.
What have I learned from this project? And then just to circle back, because I know I've been rambling, and I know, Jim, you haven't said a whole lot. You haven't heard any of this stuff yet, so I think this is going to be a surprise for you, because it's going to be very different than what you've heard from me before. But what I learned from this is, don't try to be too many damn different things. Like, focus on what you want to work on, right? And so, like, if I just work on guitar, I'm going to be better at guitar. I mean, who'd thought, right? Like, this is a stupid thing like a stupid realization.
What an odd thing to think.
Yeah, I mean, it's a stupid realization. I'm, like, not even going to lie. If you're listening to me and you're like, God, what an idiot. It's not that. It's just that I have so many different skill sets that I can use and things that I can solve problems with, that I tend to want to use them all, right? So learning to back off is going to be important for me.
Yep.
What have you learned lately, Jim? I know you're doing a lot of gigging. I'm sure you've learned something.
Yeah, had a gig Saturday night.
We'll get to the gig report too, so if you can kind of keep them separate, it'd be helpful.
Believe it or not, it's weird, but we both learned the same thing this week. So I've had so many balls in the air, plates. What is it?
You're spinning a lot of them.
Yeah, I'm spinning a lot of plates. A lot of balls in the air. Yeah, I feel like a circus clown, but all these things that have come from all this time, and I'm like, oh, if I did this, if I did this, if I did this, and what's funny is I haven't thought, well, if I bought this new piece of gear, if I ran out and tried this new thing or whatever, it's actually been a good thing that I've had to sit down and work harder to get more out of out of what I'm doing playing the guitar. I was working on a pop solo. Just it's kind of similar to your story, and so this song is a song. It's a pop song, and I don't want to go into specifics because it doesn't really matter. But it's a pop song, and it's very specific. There's 4 bars of this and 4 bars of this, 4 bars of this. But it's not one of those. Okay, repeat 4 bars, copy paste, right? And it does a quick key change, comes back, goes out to another thing. A whole different feel 3 times, then goes into the solo that's over the first bar, the first 8 bars of the guitar that you did in the beginning. So it's like, and as much as it feels like a repetitive song, it's not. And like the 2 verses are the same, and the 3 choruses are the same, but there's like 3 bridges that break it up. And so, and then the chorus comes back, the solo, and I'm doing a solo, and I'm singing right up to the point that I go into the solo. And, but I did all right. I mean, but I had to sit and I had to play that solo over and over and over and over until it was just mind-numbingly easy, which is not easy to say, obviously. And what I found out was that it was because I needed to just play it. Play the damn guitar. And what was originally written, the part as it was originally written, wasn't what I played. Because I was like, well, I'm not going to play that, and I don't want to do this because that won't translate as well live. It won't be as punchy. It won't be as powerful. So I made changes as I went along and made those changes so that they felt like you never really left the original solo. So I did my little thing. And it was like, man, that was note for note. I said, oh, no, it wasn't. That was not note for note. But it sounded like it was note for note, so it was good enough. And that's the important thing. But, and it was convincing that it was, that it would be note for note. Kind of like doing an imitation of a person, you do imitations of, people who do Christopher Walken. Oh, that sounds like Christopher Walken. Till you hear Christopher Walken, you go, no, it doesn't sound like Christopher Walken at all. It just has all the right things that make it sound like it's Christopher Walken. That's what I learned.
So
you play the freaking guitar is what I've learned.
Can I so I was on the gear page. Because I get the digest email, right? And somebody was talking about they were talking about some specific Hendrix song, but they were saying as I've learned more and more Hendrix songs, they get easier and easier because I'm getting more well versed in the style. And somebody asked the question, well, how long have you been playing guitar? And it became very apparent that this person is able to play the notes, but they don't necessarily understand inflection. They don't necessarily understand. So all right.
Yep.
So my cats are ready to throw down behind me.
Yeah. I heard them.
If you're wondering what you're hearing. So I'm reading this and I'm thinking, well, let's not judge, right? We don't know who this person is, but I'm also reading and I'm thinking yeah, I think people have a tendency to say, oh, you note for noted something. And it's
yeah.
Just because you know the notes doesn't mean you played it with the proper inflection or attitude, because that's a big part of being a musician, right? It's number one, I think there's two camps on this. I think some people want to put their own stamp on something. And I think there are other people that are no, to play it properly, it has to be played exactly like so-and-so did when they wrote it.
Right.
Which, look, whatever your jam is, but I think we all have to sort of accept, if the person can play the notes and they can do the bends and stuff in tune, then give it to them. Right. I mean, don't act oh, well, they have to sound just like Jimi Hendrix when they do, the Wind Cries Mary. And it's nobody sounds like Jimi Hendrix when they do Wind Cries Mary, so shut up. You know what I mean? You're splitting hairs. Are you gonna bitch at Stevie Ray because he had a little different way of doing Little Wing? And I think to the untrained ear, when people hear Eric Gales or Stevie Ray do Little Wing, they're and by the way, the Gales version is very different, right? I think people have a tendency to be they have so much of the Hendrix thing in there that it's an homage, but it's it's so different that at least from my perspective as a purist, it's so different that I'm that's a different thing. And I don't fault people for that, but I think a lot of lay people who aren't necessarily immersed in it wouldn't be able to tell the difference. And that's the same thing you were talking about with the Christopher Walken impression, right?
Right.
If you're not well versed in it, how would you know?
Right.
And so passing judgment on somebody for making a decision, I'm not that person. Granted, if they play the notes and they really don't play the notes, then
and that's part of what I was making sure of, is that when it came in time. It ended on time. I do okay, I'll give you an example. Red Hot Chili Peppers.
Which song?
We do Danny California and we do Californication. Okay. When I first heard Californication solo, I was like, what a piece of shit solo. What a steaming pile of shit. And so then I had to learn it. I sat and learned it, and I was like, wow, that's really cool what he did there. And it was a completely different shift. But to play it, and then he does a Hendrix homage in Danny California.
Yeah.
He does a little bit, just a tiny bit of Purple Haze, but just enough to go, look, I'm giving a nod to Purple Haze. And he intros the little pieces of the solo every time with like a, look at this, I know Purple Haze, but I'm not going to play Purple Haze. I'm going to play something completely different.
I mean, but that nowadays, like Purple Haze is just part of the guitar canon. Like everybody learns that tune, right?
Yeah, of course.
I was laughing because I'm like, I do a pretty good version of that, and I've heard other people play, and they play a totally different way. But it's like, it's not a big deal to play that song. You know what I mean? Like, no. I'm like, oh yeah, I thought it was for a while, but no, it's not really.
It's not really, but I'm just saying that he gives you just enough to go, oh, I'm going to do Purple Haze, and he goes, no, I'm not. I'm not going to do it.
Yeah.
It's kind of like that bait thing, bait and switch. But, I didn't appreciate John Frusciane's guitar playing, especially his rhythmic playing.
No, he's a good rhythm player for sure.
He definitely uses different chord voicings, and that's like Interstate Love Song. I was playing that, and I have to laugh because I'll tell you a quick story. So I'm learning Interstate Love Song for the band because we cover it, and I wanted to play it right. And I watched Rick Beato just happened to recently. Here's how Interstate Love Song. Of course, Rick Beato knows everything, right? So I played an old version the Guitar World had, and sure enough, other than the names of the chords, the voicings were exactly the same. He just named them differently. Yeah. Which you can do because you just choose to.
Yes and no. And I would actually suspect that I'd have to look at it because I'm learning, as I used to think that was true. I'm learning that, there are actually rules to some of the things, but voicings,
right. But inversions and stuff, they take on different things depending on where you're, you can whether or not you're singing an inversion and what it is in the key too.
Right.
But anyway, I made a version of it for Ultimate Guitar because I was paying to be part of Ultimate Guitar. I don't pay to be part of Ultimate Guitar anymore, and I'll tell you why. Right here. So I sent them a fix because they have this they have 5 or 6 versions, but they're all super basic crap. And I said, no, it's this.
I think I'm looking at yours right now.
Are you?
Maybe because it mentions the Rick Beato video.
Yeah.
I think you put this up here.
And I said, that needs to be fixed. And they go,
C sharp minor 7 E, A sus 2, G sharp 7, F sharp minor 11 / E, G sharp / B sharp, C sharp / B sharp.
Yeah, they wouldn't let me put that in there. Did they take that?
No, apparently they did. Yeah.
Oh, wow. Because I told them, I said, well, I guess they wrote me back and said, no, we can't use it. We've already got enough versions of it. I'm like, you've got 400 versions of Wagon Wheel, and you can't use one more version of freaking Interstate. Suck off. So I sent that, and I said, well, according to Guitar World in, 10 years ago, Rick Beato just recently, and another thing, and watching several different live versions, that's what I said, I was able to compile this, which is sonically correct, and your versions are sonically incorrect. And I said, and I thought that this being the ultimate guitar, you would be interested in a correct version.
So the text says lots of chords in the song can be seen in this live video. And then for reference, Rick Beato has a detailed explanation of the song and chords. Yeah, it's definitely you.
That's me.
Yeah. So you've got an E diminished listed here too, as well.
Yep. Yeah, there's a bunch of stuff.
It's not in the chord diagrams. Neither is the G sharp, C sharp.
I said I didn't take time to diagram these, but they're in there. And so how about that? They posted that?
Yeah. Wow. Dude, here, let me send it to you. Wow. I'll send it to you in Messenger.
I am shocked. They told me they wouldn't post it. They said, "Yeah, fuck you."
Oh, I can show. Hell, actually, let me do you one better. There it is, folks.
Put it on the screen.
So
Yeah, I gave them the. I read them the riot act. That's just because I had to sit down and play it. And if you play and sing those parts over it, it doesn't work right. I'll give you a prime example. So oh my gosh, they did. Holy crap. They included mine. Well, I'll be dipped in shit. They told me they weren't going to. I can show you an email that said they weren't going to do it.
yeah,
I said, well, I thought you were interested
there it
in
is.
correct stuff. Wow. Well,
You put a lot of work into this.
I did too. So the funny thing is, they're not the only ones. I mean, I know a person. I just recently had a conversation. I don't want to call the person out because that's not important, and it's not. And I probably went too far. But I recently had a conversation with somebody about "Ain't No Sunshine," and we got to one of the chords. I said, "That's not an F. That's a D minor." I said, I knew somebody was playing it wrong. I could hear a chord bashing against what I was playing, but I couldn't hear what it was. And I said, and I thought I was playing the same thing as everybody else, but I
D
wasn't.
minor 7.
Well, guess what? He was playing an F.
Yeah.
And it was supposed to be D minor 7, yeah. And so I was like, you can play a D minor, you can play a D minor 7.
Right.
But what you're singing is over D minor.
I'm just saying he's missing a note.
That's exactly
he's
right.
Definitely missing one.
Yeah, it's called D. So, and so I sat and I watched because I had to prove myself right because that's the jackass that I am, right?
Mm-hmm.
So I didn't go back to him because I don't care. It's not a fight worth fighting. You know, it's like whatever you play, man, I'll play with it. I don't.
You
care.
know, I've never actually had somebody tell me like you're playing the wrong fucking chord. Like, I know I play the wrong fucking chord all the time, but I've never actually had somebody tell me that. So if you told me that, I'd probably look at you and be like, shut up.
Yeah, that's exactly what he said. He said, well, I don't fucking play on it. Oh, well, I get it. That is one way to look at it.
Yeah.
And it's a proper way to look at it. I didn't care. So, but I sat down and I watched like 16 covers, including John Mayer covers of "Ain't No Sunshine."
Oh, you must have really been trying to prove something.
Every one of them. Let me tell you something.
It is
John
D
Mayer's
minor 7 in that
funky
song, I think.
Yeah, and John Mayer even proved me right, and I was like, I wanted to go see these, but then I was like, you know what? You're still being an asshole. Me, not him. You're still being an asshole because you don't need to be right. You don't need to be, you know, you're doing your thing. And that goes back to what you were talking about earlier. You just got to present, and you got to present it well. And as long as you present it well, who cares what was exactly right, what was exactly done the first time? Just needs to be done. But
yeah, I mean, I don't think I've ever seen it done with extensions anyway. So, but I could definitely see somebody playing an F against a D minor or a D minor 7 because
I can too. And I said that to him. I said I could see it where somebody thought it was an F because of this, but you're missing the D.
Yeah. Jeez. All right, you ready for the gig report?
I am.
All right.
Did you have a gig?
Time for a gig report. I did not. I did not do it. I did not.
I did not.
Where's my water bottle?
Movie or whatever was that? I did not.
Here, I just threw a bottle there. You guys all feel better now. That's from the room.
Yeah.
That's from the room. Okay. So.
There, I threw a can.
Yeah. I did not hit her. Anyway, I didn't have a gig.
Oh yeah, Tommy. That's what it was.
Yeah, Tommy
the
Wiseau.
room. Tommy. Yeah.
Or
I did not.
That creeper James Franco.
I love that movie. The movie about the room was almost as bad as the movie.
Yeah. Only because James Franco turned out to be a real creepo.
Yeah, and they're both really hilariously bad.
Yeah. Anyway, so I don't have a gig. I didn't have a gig this weekend. I didn't go to Open Jam last week. My daughter's birthday.
Yep.
I can actually talk more about the recording process, and I actually want to spend some time kind of talking a little bit more about what that's like if you've never done it. So for everybody who's done a home recording, you've done, your PreSonus interface or your Focusrite interface, 2 channels of guitar or whatever. Maybe you've got like a backing track you download via internet, or you're just experimenting, or maybe you wrote a song and like you did a demo of it, right? When I talk about the amount of time I spent on this project, like, it's not 2 hours of recording. It's like, like I said, 96 takes for one song. We did 6 songs, I think. Yeah, I think it's 6. God. It's like some of them I tracked back in February. I'm like, the hell? So we did like 6 songs, and when you sit down, and like if you're in a studio environment, I haven't done that thing yet, where you go in and like you're on the clock and you're like looking at the clock going, fuck, it's taking too many takes. But I can tell you, like, the microscope thing is real. We've talked about it on this show before. Like, I've been recording stuff and never released it for, God, like 20 years. It's almost as long as I've been playing guitar. And I will say, like, anybody can record, right? Very few people can record well. And it has to do, it's not just hitting a record button. It has to do with the performance side of it, like the guitar performer side of it. Like, most of us don't have the rhythm chops. Most of us don't have the lead chops to be able to come in and cut a solo in 5 takes that's just fucking stellar. Like, we have to sort of plot it out and chart it out. And maybe we need to look at the chords and see what appropriate scales we can use against it, and a novel approach, and sort of map it out. And I did have to do that in some places on this. And the rhythm thing, like, the chops needed to get that done. And the fact that some of it's just knowing what tools you have available. So, case in point, I was tracking a section in the second song today, and I had to... So the way this part's structured, I really need to be on for these choruses. They're not hard rhythm parts. It's like a quarter note, a quarter note, a quarter note, 2/8 notes. It's not super complicated. I think there's dots and stuff in there too, but it's a pretty simple rhythm. And I know that I gotta be on because the part before it's very intricate, and then it's going to be a stark change, and it's got to be that way and done that way on purpose. And I'm like, I tracked it. I had three iterations of this in the song, and none of them were close enough. And I was like, man, am I really going to do this? Like, am I going to sit here with a metronome for another couple hours so I can just tighten this up and not be done today? And I got to thinking, I was like, I have a tool at my disposal, and it's cheating. But is it really cheating at this point for me to go in and time align a couple of notes to make it sound tighter? And I'm not talking about the whole section. I'm talking about a couple of notes. And that's what I did. I went in and time aligned it. I'm not afraid to admit that. Like, I did it for all 3 sections because... And actually, to some extent, I sort of feel like, and by the way, so anybody who's familiar with MIDI, it's 255 note speed, or is it 100? Was it 128? 128. I think it's 128 between each iteration of a measure. So it's like 128 ticks or whatever between each note or whatever. I was off in correcting by like 0.1. So like basically like 1 tick off or 2 ticks off. That's how tight you have to be. Okay. Cause they talk about playing on grid, and that's basically what you're trying to do. So anyway, I'm going back and I'm adjusting things, and I'm realizing like, wow, this is a lot closer than I thought it was. But I had to learn how to do that today because I've never done it in Cubase. That's how little I want to use that tool. But I've suddenly realized, like, wow, I could never have been that on without the use of this tool. That tool is an effect.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what it just dawned on me. I was like, that tool is an effect. I just used an effect. Like, I shouldn't feel like this is a cardinal sin. It's
Right.
I'm not. It's not even pitch correction to an extent gets used as an effect these days. Like,
Yep.
that's the way I should perceive this. Is like I was never going to get those sections the way they needed to be, and I don't know that I could have hired somebody that could have got them as tight as I wanted them. And so, I'd like to think that I could have. You know, there's somebody out there like go get Greg Koch and let him tighten it up. But realistically, like, this was a means to an end, and so I did it. And I don't feel bad about it. And my project, I didn't use it anywhere else in the project. And we're not using pitch correction, which, you know, for better or worse, maybe it gives us a black eye or whatever. But we're not going to do that unless it's an effect, right?
Right.
So, yeah, that's my gig report. That recording is going to be done soon. I'm actually talking to several different people about getting it mixed. So one of them has been on the show, and I'm hoping he's the guy that gets the project, to be honest with you.
Yeah, Steve.
Because I think Stephen Miller, from what I've heard, like, I was really impressed with the recordings. And I was like, this is the guy I want mixing it. But we'll see. Well, I gotta get a quote from him and figure out that process. So anyway, your gig report, I'm sure you've had a gig, maybe two.
Yeah, had a gig. So Saturday night we had a gig, but I want to talk to that recording thing. So the last time I was in a studio, probably 10 years ago. Now I'm talking about a proper studio in that we were stuck to a timeline, not a grid, a timeline.
Yeah, literally
2 hours.
Yeah, you got 2 hours to get this done, right?
And so the vocalist in a booth. I was playing bass. So I'm in behind a baffle with the drummer. Any bleed between my
you can't time a line bleed.
Nope. And then there was no time aligning at that point.
Oh yeah, no, it existed back then, but nobody was using it.
Well, yeah, it was being used, but not to the extent.
It was actually just shitty back then. That's all.
Yeah, the software wasn't that good. So it was to tape. We were recording the tape. And,
okay. That's more than 10 years ago, then.
It was. Oh, geez.
That's got to be like 20 years ago.
Yeah.
If you were recording a tape in 2009, I'd be shocked. Because tape was $700 or $800 a roll back then. It's actually come down in price a little bit. So.
So this guy was recording us. We were doing demos. So we were going in to record these for demos. I mean, he might have been recording to Pro Tools, but we definitely weren't time aligned. I can tell you that right now, because there were a lot of. It was like, okay, so our drummer used a strobe metronome, and so I was using that same strobe. Because light travels fast enough that no matter what I heard, I was going to be on time. And the guitar player was in another room, the lead guitar player, and we had and then they went in and did the backing vocals. We did the harmony vocals.
Right.
So that was done. It was 2 hours. Now, the exact opposite of what you went through. So we were, okay, here's your songs. It's already been gridded out. We rehearsed the shit out of them. We went in, and it was okay. And you guys are coming in. We had a scratch track in 3, 2, 1, and then we played to that scratch, and then whatever was good of that they used, because it was a demo, so they cut out anything they didn't like. That would happen later. Then we played the next song. It was 3 or 4 songs. Then we went in and we did the vocal. Now, I did this similarly, and so that had to be done in 2 hours. And that was 2 hours. That 2 hours included my sitting down playing with that guy. So I got maybe 20 minutes And part of the time that I spent, 20 minutes playing, maybe 25. The rest of it was setting our levels and, everything else, and getting us to where we could hear it and all the other stuff. I had recorded another demo when I went in, and the guitar player he used Pro Tools for sure, and he did a track, and he goes, listen, I'm gonna, if any of the singing is off, as long as it's close, I'll bring it in, I'll pitch correct it, that way we get it done just like that. So I did a 4-take. So I came in, played my rhythm guitar parts, and then I sang all the lead vocals and all the backing vocals. 4 takes.
But that's why you have those tools, right? So you can get all that done in 2 hours.
Yeah. And that was all because we only had the tools that we had for the limited time. And people who have that now, who have unlimited, I mean, you don't have unlimited time. You're not going to live forever, but you know what I mean? Right. But you have a lot more time, and you have whatever bandwidth time you have. And then you have, because you can do that at home, you have all the tools to be able to plug that in and do that. I would hate to do that for somebody else. That's what I'm saying.
The going rate for studio time in my area is about $40 an hour for a reasonable studio. That's not somebody's basement. That's like an actual place that's got a live room and stuff. So to put that in perspective, if you're going to do 2 days worth of recording, you can see how that starts to get expensive.
I can't imagine the people that go in for weeks or months.
Yeah, well, so a lot of times, like Columbia Records, for example, has they use their own studio, so they don't have to pay. Like John Mayer records at the studio normally. I mean, he's got his own studio now too, but that's how most of them operate now, like the big major companies. Virtually no one has a truly like unlimited budget with that regard. Right. So,
I mean, obviously, Electric Ladyland was what do you call it? But Tom Schultz was one of the first guys to go, you know what? I'm going to have me a studio, and I'm going to have a really good studio.
Yeah, there wasn't much of a home recording market for professional 2-track stuff, but Tom Schultz said that because he was going to build it all himself. And he wasn't unique. There were other guys doing that too, but it was it was a rarity. It was not like it is now, where everybody has like a laptop with Pro Tools, you know? Which if you have a laptop with Pro Tools, shame on you.
I watched a thing about 10 years ago where Brooks and Dunn were talking about how they tracked their latest album at that time. And this might have been, now probably 12 or 15 years ago now. But anyway, and they were talking about how they used Pro Tools to remove an airplane that flew overhead during one of their best takes.
Yeah, you've talked about that on the show before.
Yeah. But, so as far as my gig went, that's why I said that stuff, because I mean, it was a gig. I played with I used my Kemper, and I used my own wah pedal. I prefer my slash wah. And I still need to dial in my tones a little bit for what we've got now, because we're using a phased array for mains now, and our subs are newer. But it went well. Our other guitar players now in ears, so we're all in ears except for our bass player,
right?
Who is going to go in ears. So we'll all be.
Your drums are still acoustic,
right? Our drums are acoustic, and that'll be what's left acoustically later. I mean, it's going to be pretty crazy when we go completely. Excuse me.
So as we were talking, I actually looked up the price of tape.
Yep.
So how much, the good stuff, right? And in a decent quantity, $730.
Jeez. Yep.
And there's some that's $1,300, and then there's some stuff that's $99 a reel. So the price of tape is coming down. They've been talking about that. I guess there is a company now producing magnetic tape again.
Okay.
But it's an enthusiast price. I mean, $100 a reel for what? I think that you get like what, 15 minutes on a reel or something.
Yeah,
it's not even that.
yeah.
I think it's like 5 minutes on the reel.
Yeah, it depends on the reel, but yeah.
Yeah.
That's 2-inch tape.
Mm-hmm. That's for 2-inch.
Jesus.
Anyway,
Yeah.
that's what I said. I know that it was actually more expensive in 2009, if you can imagine that.
If you're Dave Grohl, you can afford it.
Yeah. Well, even he, that's a luxury. They were talking about that actually. So he apparently does do their whole record on it, which most people record in Pro Tools and then bounce to tape, if they want to get that sound. So
right. There's a good reason for that.
Yeah, but apparently they actually use tape, and they have a tape like an engineer that knows how to deal with it and stuff. So
yep. All right.
You got nothing? You're not got a gig to talk about either?
That was it. That
all
was
right,
the gig
you got enough. All right, you got enough.
We used in-ears. We used in-ears, and it was fun, and we had a gig. And 2 weeks, I got another one.
Okay, all right. So since you were talking about in-ears, I got to bring this up because I mentioned it. I've had a couple conversations with people about in-ears in the last week, and it was really funny because some people. All right, everybody wants to pretend like in-ears are either. You get two opinions. In-ears are great. In-ears suck. They're awful. Okay.
In-ears are great and they suck. I can tell you that.
There's a reason. So, all right. Why is the professional side of the industry going to in-ears? I mean, that's what I want to talk about for just a second. The professional side of the industry went to in-ears because they had tracks running and they needed a silent way for them to receive a click and or a count in or address, musical information that they need to be able to hear perfectly, so that they can align with the track. And you can see this any pop show where they've got a duet and there's somebody on screen and they're duetting with them or whatever. They're not like tap tempoing that. You know what I mean? Like it's a track, right? And even like when you go to any band that doesn't have an orchestra with them and you hear strings and there's no keyboard player on stage, that's probably a track. And it's probably a track anyway because keyboard strings sound like ass. So it's one of those things where that was a necessity that got a lot of people involved. Now you've got churches getting into it because they bought into the concept of the silent stage, which, okay, whatever. Churches aren't the model of the universe. They do certainly buy a lot of equipment though. And we were talking about monitoring systems, and one of the things I made a comment was, if you go to a wireless in-ear system, you're introducing latency in the system. Because we were talking actually about like how on some of these stages you're 30 feet from your guitar amp, and that creates latency. It's about I think that's what, 30 milliseconds worth of latency at 30 feet. So because it's like 10 milliseconds per feet or something. There's some number. It's not a ton of latency. And I made the comment that if you are, like, let's say your cable has got dual run, right, to your board. You've got digital pedals on the board. You've got a run back to the amp. You're introducing latency, right? There's more latency there, as at the distance between you is latent, right? But also the digital pedals on your board add latency. And then if you have, unless they're analog drive through, because the analog signal will at least not be latent. And then the other thing you need to be cognizant of is you run wireless, right? Your wireless is a bad culprit for latency, especially if it's a digital one. They're all known for it now. There's nothing you can do to avoid it. In fact, even the least latent of the industry is still like, I think it's 10 milliseconds, which is just wild. But they figure they can get away with it because you're already 10 feet from your amp or whatever to use wireless. So when you think about it, if you are to do that and you don't have side fills on stage, which does bigger stages where you've got a 30-foot run, hopefully you have a side fill, right? And you have a quality monitoring engineer that's giving you volume. You're getting your signal from the side field, not your amp, because it's too far away for you to hear it. So theoretically, if you're introducing latency, actually the better way to handle that, even the side field, is probably in-ears. And except for the hidden demon, that is, it's a wireless system, which means that it's going to introduce additional latency because they're digital. And so now you're dealing with the 10 milliseconds from your wireless to your 10 milliseconds across the entire board from your digital apparatus to your hopefully tube amp, so you don't have more latency there, and then whatever distance there, the microphone if it's running to a digital console, and then the digital console is then latent, and then it's sending the signal back to your monitor mix. Or in this, like I just said, you get another 10 seconds of latency or 10 milliseconds of latency from your in-ears. That can be a curse when you really think about the amount of stuff there. Although I think I would still rather have in-ears on a big stage, because I know I'm not going to be standing next to that, next to the side fill all night. You know what I mean?
Well, yeah, I could say this. So, as a vocalist, in-ears help immensely.
Yeah, because you can hear yourself.
Hear yourself so well, and you could turn it up as loud as you want. It's not going to feed back unless you do this.
Mm-hmm.
And for folks that are listening, I put my earphone to my microphone. So literally, there's no way to get feedback. Just not feasible. And so I could turn up my voice, and I completely, now of course I can do that with a floor monitor too, control my mix, because I can control what's going out of that channel to, if I had a floor monitor, to the floor monitor or to that thing. But the truth of the matter is that I'm getting almost no latency. I mean, and it might be because I'm using, so my wireless you got to remember, I'm using a Kemper, so I've got latency built into the Kemper.
Right.
And the Kemper goes directly to the board.
Yeah, but the Kemper isn't that latent, actually, which is kind of wild. It's one of the least latent modelers. So
my Kemper is wired directly into the board. So the only latency I've got is from my wireless system at the board to my ear. After that.
Mm-hmm.
And to be honest, that's probably going to be the same amount of latency, because I have an old wireless, which is like...
Well, your guitar wireless, but then also your in-ears as well.
My guitar's not wireless.
Oh, I thought you were running wireless guitar.
Sometimes I do, but I usually don't. And the reason is because I do so much singing at the same time as playing that I don't have the release of me for more than maybe 3 or 4 feet from my circle is just not there. If it was my show and my thing, it'd be different. But because it's the Fitchett Company show and I'm doing what I do, my part in that does not allow me to go all over the place. I am pretty much stuck to my little spot. So I've got wired guitar into Kemper into the thing, and the only digital pedal I have in between is the Digidrop. Because I have
it's the drop, which is not very latent. I think it's about 1.5 milliseconds.
Yeah, and so I've only got the latency from. Now, don't think I don't hear it or feel it. But I do know it's there.
Well, I mean, honestly, I don't feel it 95% of the time. Right. The only reason I'm cognizant of it is because I know when I'm recording, I can see it, and I can hear it in the track.
Right. But if I could, and if I was recording, I'd probably get. But I can hear, just like when I'm talking to you and I'm listening back through I get a little bit of latency. So I know that I've got some latency there. But I'm used to, how do I say this? The good thing is, because the drum, the bass, and the other guitar player and the other vocalist are in here, it's all at the same time.
Right.
My reaction time to all that is in sync.
Well,
and so my feedback for that is actually what I hear. Is my guitar on time? Okay, and I probably lay back or get ahead of the beat a little bit to make up for whatever I've got to.
So I'll posit something else, which is something that I don't think people actually address when they talk about latency in conversation, which is that, number one, you got to have a lot of latency before you're going to feel it. Like, even to be able to hear it in your headphones right now, I would be shocked if you actually can hear the, whatever, however many samples you have latent.
Right.
And round trip, because there's more than just that. There's round trip latency. So there's actually the thing has to do a conversion output too as well. But I would say that until you get to about 30 milliseconds, I don't think most people would notice. They might, right? 30 milliseconds, like if you ever dialed in a delay for 30 milliseconds, you can hear it as a double only when you hear the reference signal with it. So, but it does feel different, right? If you're only monitoring the wet mix. But I would say, well, we've gone on like really long tangent, so we're going to wrap this up. But I would say that delay and that thing is like a different thing. And then also, this is where I was actually going, was that we expect latency when we see a band. Like, we actually sort of psychologically filter it out. And it's a psychoacoustic thing that happens. And actually, when people play in orchestras and stuff, they talk about it, and they're like, we know that we're latent to like a violin player. Okay, so
that's right.
If you know how like an orchestra is situated, you know that the in the back is where the percussion is, and in the front is like where the violins and stuff are. Violins know they're latent to the percussion, and they are accustomed to dealing with that. And so it's weird for them when they're not latent.
That's exactly right.
And that's exactly what happens to musicians on stage, is that we actually prefer that sound of that latency, and we're kind of pissed off when we go in the studio and we can't get that, that's a whole other conversation, especially somebody that spends more time on stage than they do in the studio or whatever. Like, that's a big part of that, right? And so this may be a moot point, but I'm just saying, like, from the point of talking about wireless systems, is that I think people would think that a wireless system would be a remedy for the monitor problem. And it's not necessarily from that perspective. Like, from the silent stage thing where you can have a better stage mix, that's probably the actual answer, but also to be able to silently monitor yourself so you can have a click. And that is what made that a big deal, is the click.
Right. And we use that talk back, and we use that cue thing. So that's always, matter of fact, this weekend, what I would hear in there is, the next song, the next song's thing, okay. Danny California in 3.
Yeah.
2,
I'd be like, what key?
Yep. And little things like that. All right, guys, we're dropping out, and 2, 1, and then okay, we're coming back in, and that type of thing. So those kind of cues are there. Our drummer is the band leader in that. So I love being able to hear that. Now the other side of it is, he was down having a conversation at the other end. He forgot he had his talkback mic on.
He's like, Jim, that guy's a prick.
He's talking away, and I'm looking over there, and I wave, and he goes, oh. He points at his microphone.
All right. Well, that's really, that's where we're at tonight. Hope you guys all enjoy your NAMM coverage this week, because it's all going to drop this week instead of when it should have. I've been David.
I've been Jim.
And tonight we've been Practical Guitarists. Live on YouTube, I guess.
Good night.